The only way to survive the sex industry is to become totally numb. So whether that's through drugs or through dissociation that many of us are capable of doing because we've had histories of incredible trauma and rape and abuse, the only way to survive it is to disconnect completely. And that's no way to live. Like, there comes a point where once you disconnect so much and so often, it's very difficult to reconnect again. And it's like being the walking dead.
For me, the sex industry, prostitution, I say, was the most soul-destroying 12 months of my life. I have a lot of young girls say to me, 12 months isn't very long. It's like 12 seconds is too long. You know, I was somebody's daughter and I was being paid money to have sex with strangers night after night after night, after stranger, with no idea of my worth, with no idea of my value. And so it not only destroyed my body, it destroyed my soul.
There was no more of me, no more of my gifts and talents. There was only like this warped version of my gift, and it fed a beast. And honestly, no matter how much I got naked, no matter how perverted a shoot was, no matter what someone asked me to do, no one was ever satisfied. It was never enough. They just wanted more of me, and there really wasn't any more to give.
At the lowest and worst times, I think I consumed multiple hours a day of pornography, which was me just sitting there and literally just sitting at the computer trying to consume and trying to find that high that seems to be farther and farther away as I get deeper into the addiction.
At the root of addictive behavior, it's trying to fill a core need. Either I'm unlovable, I'm unworthy. When you walk into a club, somehow now I'm the most important person on the earth. I have power. Women are interested in me, and I don't have to deal with the messy complexity of relationships. And I think there's something that's really seductive about the fantasy.
My whole experience in the industry was about becoming someone else's fantasy. When you think about intimacy, true intimacy, it's about knowing someone and being known. The sex industry is the opposite of that because it's all about becoming who someone else wants you to be. So by the end of it, I didn't even know who Harmony was anymore because I was so busy being Monique. And Monique wasn't a real person. Monique was just a whole compilation of other people's fantasies. Leaving the industry means having to deconstruct all of that and get back to who am I really outside of what someone else wants me to be.
When you're looking at yourself as a product, all of your worth is conditional on whether or not someone else notices it, whether or not someone else buys it or validates it. And when you're a person, you're worth it because God says you're worth it. Because you are a human being and you were put on this earth for a purpose.
I think if people paying for sex and watching porn knew the reality of these women's lives when the camera is off or the job is done, the brokenness that they feel and experience, the anxiety, the post-traumatic stress disorder, which is on the level of combat veterans, the addictions to prescription medication, alcohol, drugs, it's not as glamorous as the picture is painted. And I feel like if men really knew the truth behind this, that you can't possibly continue to give to that.
If there were no demand, there would be no sex industry. It is completely a supply and demand issue. And so as long as people are participating in the demand, there are going to be women who are sexually exploited. There are going to be women who are sex trafficked because there is a demand. But the more people are willing to really accept and see the realities of the sex industry and make a decision to not participate in the demand, then hopefully a dent can start to be made and maybe less women will be exploited.
Even with casual use, what that still does in and of itself is perpetuate the same global societal impact, saying women are valued for what they provide physically and sexually, not for who they are. So it still has profound impacts, even if it's just through casual use, because it's still part of that same system.
The average person probably doesn't realize that 70% of female trafficking victims are trafficked into the commercial sex industry. That means they're working on porn sets, they're working in strip clubs, they're working for escort agencies, they're working on the streets. And the tie between sex trafficking and the commercial sex industry is irrefutable and very strong.
The federal definition of sex trafficking is causing someone to engage in commercial sexual exploitation by use of force, fraud, or coercion. Simply, I call it slavery. I call it robbery of a person's identity, true value, true potential, hope, everything. It was not my choice if I want to dance and raise money for this career and work with him. Now it was, you owe me money, you signed a contract. If you don't get me my money, I'm gonna kill your parents, I'm gonna come by and kill you and your roommate. And he would come into the strip club sometimes and make sure I was not allowed to sit down. I was not allowed to talk to patrons for longer than a minute if they weren't paying. And he afterwards was also trafficking me sexually to buyers, including the ones in the strip club. So if a man bought a dance in the strip club, he would approach the man afterwards and say, hey, do you want her for tonight? And he had about 3 other victims that were dancing there as well.
The research says 89% of women in the sex industry want out and don't see another way. And that's part of what we want to do at Treasures, is to help them see another way.
Every person on the face of the planet deserves to know that they're loved and valued and created with a purpose, that they're purposed. And Harmony and her team get to come alongside the lives of those women, look them in the eye, make eye contact, hand out a pink bag, and let them know that they're worthy, let them know that they're seen, and by being seen, they're known that they're loved.
I was inspired to start Treasures because of my own life experiences and having worked in the sex industry as a stripper and remembering how challenging that was, how much pain I was in. And once I got out and I got free, I wanted there to be a resource for other women who were feeling as trapped as I did.
I was working at a club in LA. About 2 years into it, Treasures began having outreach. And so they came to our club. The gift bags in that environment, that was the only instance that I was ever, and I mean this wholeheartedly, that I was ever given anything that no one asked me for something in return. I felt extremely loved and valued by that statement that they made, to sacrifice time and safety to give me one little thing. I mean, it changed the way that I looked at me. I thought, well, they see me a certain way. Maybe I should too.
Men are such a big part of the brokenness in many of these women's lives that we have to be part of the solution as well.
Our core message to women in the sex industry is that they are loved, valued, and purposed. And we really believe that once a woman has a revelation of that, it becomes difficult to live in a way that contradicts that message.